Shalom, everybody. Rabbi Edelstein here with this week's edition of Rabbi E in 3, brought to you as always by MEOR DC. I'm going to go longer than 3 today, telling you that right at the start. I think the times demand it. I think what I want to share with everyone, I'm not going to limit myself to 3. I'm not going to try to go on and on and on, but I've gotten in the last 48 hours a lot of strength and a lot of encouragement and hope from my fellow colleagues, both in MEOR and in other organizations, rabbis, others, just sharing words of encouragement and wisdom and perspectives. And I, without any exaggeration, feel a little bit of trepidation to add my 50 cents to the mix or whatever it is. But I have to do that. I want to do that. And if there's someone out there who, whether you watch Rabbi in 3 usually, or our first time watcher, maybe some of the perspectives, lessons, ideas, reflections that I share with you in the next 5 or 10 minutes, maybe they can be of help. That's all I can hope. And so I'm putting it out there. Well, the Torah portion this week is Ki Sisah in the book of Exodus. It's a huge Torah portion which talks about a calamitous event in the history of the Jewish people. That's not our focus today, but as always, the Torah portion reflects something going on in our lives, in the life of each and every Jewish person who opens the book, the good book, and I'm sure every human being, really. So I will mention that, but where to start? We live in a world radically different than even a week ago, certainly us in America. So what follows is just reflections, ideas, perspectives. Number one, I'd say, how quickly things have changed in a scary way, an uncertain way, but the speed at which we're living in a different reality, that's something that we should consider, think about, take on board, if you will. Things can happen very quickly. You know that, I know that. But I'm not telling you anything you didn't know, but we see it vividly, powerfully, how quickly things can change in this world for the good or the opposite. And my generation, I remember I lived through 9/11, and that was such a time in my life when everything changed very suddenly. And it feels a lot like that now, maybe even more so. Why reflect on that point? Well, remember, we Jewish people have taught the world that history has a purpose, a direction. It's not random. So if something suddenly happens in the world, something so massive, it's not random. Can I tell you exactly what tomorrow will be and how the plan will unfold? Of course not. We're not prophets. But that there are big things going on in the world, I don't think anyone can deny that. And I think that's not only a healthy but a correct response Jewishly as we take in what's happening. It's not just something small, though it affects each and every one of us, some in a more uncertain way than others, of course, but it's a big world event. What's going on? We can ask that question. What is going on? What's God doing? What's happening here? I think it also is a time to ask, we could ask big questions in our own lives, partly because our routines have been upended. We have a lot more time, maybe. I hope not too many people are in quarantine now, but our schedules are different. We might be more at home or whatever. So it's a good time to ask big questions to ourselves. Whenever the pause button is hit for whatever reason in life, even without our desire, we can take stock and say, well, what am I living for? What's my life all about? Some of the bigger questions that every one of us knows are the crucial questions in life, however much we are busy with noble tasks, busy with sometimes not noble tasks, distracted with messages on our phone. The big questions of what is my life about? What's my purpose in life? Now's a great time, an auspicious time to think about them. That, by the way, is what the word teshuvah really means. Teshuvah, repentance, a huge concept, of course, in Judaism, which literally means return, and its focus is on the time of year Yom Kippur, but it's an ongoing, everyday process of reorienting ourselves to what's deeper in our lives and digging deeper in myself, trying to understand, trying to get more clarity in the world. That's really ultimately, so one of the lessons that can come out of this experience, each in our own way, is a process of tshuva, of reflection, and change based on that reflection, possibly. Another obvious point is how incredibly interrelated we are. The whole world. We've known that. We in the internet era, and the cell phone era, we can talk to people in Singapore and, see our nephews and wherever they live all over the world. But now, in a very powerful way again, how unbelievably interrelated we are, the whole world. Someone from China, someone visits China, and now, or whatever it is, however the virus exactly started, okay, that's always been a Jewish teaching, that all mankind is united from one original human being, Adam and Chava. We all are united. The Torah always proclaimed the unity of mankind for good and for bad, which means that close interrelationship puts a responsibility on each one of us not to damage somebody else. And we know, I hope I haven't been guilty of it. I haven't been sick lately, but I mean, someone who goes out when they shouldn't be going out, someone who, to the gory details, sneezes and doesn't cover their, mouth with a tissue. I mean, we should just realize it could have an impact, a very negative impact on many, many, many people. There's a famous Jewish midrash where talking about the responsibility the Jewish people have for one another, but it applies to the whole world. Two people in a boat, and one person starts drilling under his seat in the boat, and the other person next to him says, "Stop doing that." And he says back to him, "Well, it's not your business. It's under my seat." And of course, it's ludicrous. We all are in the same boat, so we can negatively impact if we're other people, if we're careless with our choices, if we're reckless. And okay, now all the more so we can do good to other people. That's always another Jewish concept, that whatever lesson we learn on the negative side, it even more so applies on the positive side, that every little act of kindness we can do to others, of reaching out in this time of crisis to others, as much as we can, showing our love, showing our concern, thinking about other people. That is powerful. That brings unity and elevation and life to the world. So it's a big event happening. We're all interrelated and in it together. Our actions have tremendous impact for good or the opposite. Of course, the concept of bitachon, trust, is something that has to be discussed. Trust in God, bitachon. Now, what does trust in God mean? Great sages throughout the millennia in the Jewish tradition have pointed out, to sum up a huge topic, of which there are whole books literally, two basic pathways within the Jewish concept of bitachon. One, an inner reliance on God, on God's plan, an awareness that the ultimate result of efforts we put in is ultimately not in our own hands. And we know that to be true. I mean, two people can, do exactly the same initiative in a certain area, and one person works out, the other person not. So, and that knowledge that it's ultimately God's decision, plan, the outcome, that should be calming. That's really the psychological benefit. If someone, I'm not speaking for myself, has reached that level of bitachon, they live a life much less, full of worry and care, that the ultimate outcome is up to God. But that never, ever meant in Judaism, and the books talk about it very explicitly, great books of Jewish ethics, that has to be coupled with maximum initiative on our part when it comes to avoiding danger or doing what's right. We have to make use of every means possible to avert harm, to not put ourselves into danger. In this case, obviously, it means listening to the CDC or expert opinion about what we should not do. And because other people's lives are at stake, even erring on the side of caution. So again, that concept of trust in God, bitachon, in Judaism is an inner reliance, an inner acceptance that ultimately God's decree will be fulfilled. But on our end, we have to put every effort we can into doing whatever we can, choosing wisely, looking at the options. The two go together. One without the other is a disaster, right? If someone gets sick and they say, well, I'm not going to check into the emergency room or whatever it is. I'm not going to take medicine. I mean, then we know that's ludicrous. Judaism and Jewish law, you have to, it's enshrined and encoded in Jewish law to seek out the best medical aid and help you can. But on the other hand, we're not supposed to put our ultimate trust in Dr. Fauci, as wonderful an emissary of good as he really is in the world right now. We put our ultimate trust in Hashem, in God, but we do everything that Dr. Fauci says and everyone else and all the initiative we can in this world. That's a pathway for our whole lives, that balance. That's bitachon. And Duties of the Heart, great book from 1,000 years ago, talks about it. And I urge everyone, take this time to order Duties of the Heart and read the whole book, especially Jewish people. It's got such wisdom in it. Certainly part of bitachon, trust, means not panicking. Not panicking. This week's Torah portion, that's the tie-in, the golden calf. The Jewish people go from having heard God speak at Mount Sinai to not all of them worshiping an idol, but this cataclysmic event called the golden calf, the Egel HaZahav, 40 days after hearing God speak the 10 commandments. How did it happen? Now, again, there are books almost about that topic, but a great rabbi, Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz, of the earlier generation, of this past generation, died about 30 years ago, I guess, something like that. He points to the role of panic in making the descent so steep. The fact that the Jewish people go from such high a level to such an unfathomably low level so suddenly, panic, confusion of mind, what's called bilbul hadas, that allowed the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, to do graver damage than it could ever do in a more normal, calm mind, right? So in our own personal lives, in this situation, panic, again, I don't mean strict caution is not panic. Panic means when you're not thinking, you're not stopping and thinking. Don't stop and think. You could really do bad things. We know that in our own lives in much smaller areas than this coronavirus. But okay, so trust in God, effort, but not panic. I would say that this is a great opportunity, while taking care of ourselves and thinking about our own safety, to really look to help others as much as we can. We are interrelated. We see that now. Let's embrace it. Maybe if you're in isolation, you can't go visit someone, but you can call someone. You can think about someone else. You can pray for someone else, all of which are wonderful ways of getting outside of our own scary cocoon of worry or grief or boredom or whatever it is, to think how we can help others. You know, this whole thing I should have mentioned earlier really presents itself as a gigantic nisayon, a test. That's nisayon is the Hebrew word for test. By the way, the root of the word means to lift up, because every test, challenge that God sends us, and everything we experience as a test, our great sages say, is an opportunity to lift ourselves up, to lift others up, to lift the world up. So one of the great challenges, I think, of this nisayon is to think about somebody else, even when, and by the way, that's also the Jewish idea, right? The Jewish idea, it says, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, famous verse in the Torah, you shall love your fellow man like yourself. Of course, I start with my own concern about myself. I'm worried about, I don't want to get sick. Okay, transfer as much as you can of that concern, of that initiative to think how you can help others. That's the idea of v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, or at least include others in your worries, so to speak. I'd say there's an opportunity here. If your life has changed and you have more time at home or whatever, it's a blessing in disguise. I'm not talking about dealing with sickness. That's horrible, and hopefully many people will not get sick. Of course, these things apply even if you do. But time to think. We live in a time when we don't think. And truthfully, I feel ambivalent about doing a video, because I think we all spend too much time looking at screens, but we're utilizing the technology, hopefully, to do good things. But time to think about yourself, what's important to you, time to be kind to yourself. That's a good recipe for staying well. Be kind to yourself. Hard, and certainly worrying is the opposite of kindness to yourself. That's hard to abolish, but do our best to care for ourselves. Look inward more, like I said. Read a book you haven't read before. Spend time with family, or again, talk on the phone. Even in a quarantine situation, someone can talk on the phone or Skype, or make use of this wonderful technology, right? Thank God the coronavirus does not transmit through, computer screens, as far as I know. So get close to others. This incredible isolation could actually be a time to get closer to others. It could be. We could use the nisayon, the test, properly that way. Prayer, Torah study, of course. There are a lot of great videos online. I'm not speaking for myself. Simpletoremember.com, a wellspring of Jewish wisdom, aish.com, great website for Jewish wisdom, Torah.org, their individual, Jonathan Sachs, the former chief rabbi of Great Britain. There's so many, and other meaningful videos, not just rabbis, other meaningful videos that someone can watch that's not just the static or worse of a new hysterical projection, while, of course, keeping our eye on what Dr. Fauci says and everything that, is useful and relevant information, but not to get obsessed, like Rabbi E has been, with every new headline, when we can use this great technology to have meaningful, life-changing videos or read articles. Okay. I'm going to finish in a couple minutes, and this is well over 3 minutes. I probably lost all of you. I hope not all of you, but Jewish wisdom, to sum up a lot of what I said, not all, but one of the most famous, beautiful, eternal rabbinic nuggets of rabbinic wisdom, in my opinion. It's well known in the Jewish community, but it's so applicable now, right? The world seems very shaky in a way right now, our own personal world and the world at large. How am I going to make my world stable? The rabbis say, Shimon HaTzadik, al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed, on 3 things the world stands. And it means stand solidly, firmly. Al HaTorah, on the Torah, the study of Torah, a great thing to do with your spare time, a great way to put into perspective what's going on inside here and out in the world. The world stands on 3 things: on Torah study, on service of God, which in the time of the temple referred to the sacrificial service, but it also then and now means prayer. Prayer is called service of the heart in the Torah. And the 3rd pillar, acts of loving kindness. On 3 things the world stands. I feel shaky. I need a checklist. I need a bullet point, list of big priorities. Studying Torah, studying reading a Jewish book, watching a Jewish video counts, right? Prayer. That's a personal thing. You don't need to, and you shouldn't go to a minyan. In Bergen, New Jersey, they're not having minyanim. If you're feeling sick, you should certainly not go to a minyan. But whether you pray individually or with a congregation, avoda, prayer, is one of the 2 pillars on which the world stands, Rav Shimon HaTzadik said. And the 3rd one, kindness to others, acts of kindness. And just to reiterate, it doesn't have to be you knock on someone's door and give them a hamantash, and that was a few days ago. Okay, but you can still do that. Even after Purim, you can do that. But if you can't do that because someone is in isolation, you're in isolation, like I said, you can think about them, pray for them, call them. And finally, we'll end with this, and this is strength. It's something we all have to look into ourselves, me very much included, and try to find reservoirs of strength. Chizuk. Every time we, the Jewish people, finish a book of the Torah collectively in our yearly reading of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, the congregation says, Chazak, Chazak, v'nis chazek. Strong, strong, we shall be strong. An incredible thing. There was you might have heard, a very great literary critic named Edmund Wilson, not Jewish, who had a kind of a fascination with the Jewish people. It's well known in biographies of him, and tried to learn Hebrew. Maybe he did learn Hebrew towards the end of his life. But I think if I'm not mistaken, it's on his gravestone, because he was so impressed with that Jewish commitment cry to strengthen ourselves always. And this is a time when all of us need strength. Chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek. The book of Psalms is an incredible source of strength. I would recommend reading the book of Psalms. Non-Jewish people, for many people know that. I hope Jewish people know the book of Psalms is a source of inspiration and strength. Psalm 91 is particularly one that's mentioned. It talks about trusting in God in times of danger. But the idea of fortifying your heart with bitachon, with true trust, which, as we said before, includes initiative, that emotion fills the book of Psalms. Chazak, chazak, be strong. Be strong, because even in this perilous, weak state we're in, we can rely on the one who truly is strong. and we can utilize the strength in ourselves. God created us in his image, and that doesn't just mean with creativity, new creative ways. Right now, they're finding to somehow, probably in Israel, I think also in Israel, to figure out how to destroy this or destroy this virus, or to fortify ourselves. That's one kind of creativity. But that is a mark of the human soul, the divine image, but also that strength. If God is strong, if he's the almighty one, and we're created in his image, then we're not almighty. Do not think that that's a bad way to go. But we can partake of his might, and we can be strong. And we have friends, and we have family, and we have whatever you think of different people in the government. There are people working to help us, Dr. Fauci and others. So we listen to what they say. There's a lot of reasons to be hopeful. I pray, I hope, and pray that no one will get sick, that those who, if they do get sick, they have a speedy recovery, that we, all of us individually and collectively, are elevated in some way by this nisayon, this incredible test that has so suddenly been presented to this world. I hope this was helpful in some way. Have a wonderful Shabbos, and I only hope things will look a lot better a week from now. Whatever they are, hang in there. On three things the world stands: Torah, prayer, kindness. There's strength. There's positivity. I didn't mention that, but that's implicit. Lots of videos and so on and so forth. Have a wonderful Shabbos.